as I mentioned last week, George provided an overview of Odyssey. We talked a little bit about how to, go through the website, how to find all the resources that you need to get more involved. And we had some great newcomer introductions. One thing Patrick set up was a poll everywhere to provide an opportunity for you to ask questions. We know there's a lot, and so this is a nice starting point. We're going to let Patrick or anybody go through all of these questions at the start, and then we're going to open it up to anybody else on this call. Raise your hands. You can either kind of introduce yourself if you didn't join last week or didn't introduce yourself last week, do that, or add more questions. And basically, we want this to be a conversation as much as possible. So Patrick's here. We have a number of other veterans in the community who can answer these questions as well. So on that note, Patrick, I'm going to have this slide up. You can just kind of go from there, and I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Greg. And actually, so we'll go through these questions in order, and I'll just be happy to moderate. But I think for the first question that we got about sustainability model, I'll ask George to share with everybody about how we're talking about sustainability in terms of Odyssey as a community and what the Central Coordinating Center is doing. But I'd also actually like to invite Paul Nagy to talk about sustainability, since he's done a great job of demonstrating business models for sites who are participating in the Odyssey community. But first, maybe George, you can share a couple thoughts there.
Sure, thanks, Patrick. So George Rupsack here. Hi, everyone. So first of all, like millions of dollars worth of work get done in the Odyssey community every year through voluntary effort. So like the main thing is that this is a voluntary community, a community that volunteers its time towards the mission of generating evidence. So thank you for that. The Coordinating Center at Columbia has some infrastructure costs and other costs like that in the symposium that adds up to something short of $1 million a year. And that gets raised in several ways. And that includes the symposium that gets raised through an FDA grant that pays for part of the conference, goes through contributions that people make when they come to the symposium, support that comes in. It comes from projects that we work on where some money is put aside in the grant, say it's a grant to maintain the infrastructure with the permission of the funding agency. So we pieced that together. We have an Odyssey site where a program where we want people to sponsor Odyssey and allow us to go to the next level. And that's available on the website, looking for sponsors from various parts of industry or elsewhere that can put this forward. In addition, we collaborate with government officials, also looking for funding sources for Odyssey to help us carry out our mission.
Good. And Paul, do you want to comment on, I know you gave a session during Melody's session about how people can think about business models for sustaining themselves as participants in the Odyssey community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Patrick and George. So actually, I'd like to think about sustainability in two different ways. One way is actually, how do we support all the software of Odyssey? And then I can talk about how could a health system support their Odyssey infrastructure. So I think one of the things important to note, one of the real advantages for, people come for the data model in Odyssey, but one powerful thing that they have here is that we have enormous analytics tools available that are open source. We actually have hundreds of software developers each year donating their time from over 31 organizations helping write software from Hades to Atlas, the Web API, Aries, all the new software development. So this is actually a large software development ecosystem. We actually have a grant from the National Science Foundation for studying our open source ecosystem, and sustainability is actually a big part of that. So we have a lot of maintainers from different organizations that are helping support the software. We actually, we often, none of this is funded through Odyssey. This is actually all supported by the organizations themselves in their support of their development team's time in the software development process. We also have gotten support from Amazon, Google, and from Microsoft in building out Odyssey tools on their cloud platforms. So I think that's a whole fun conversation to have that we'd like to talk about. We have a group called the Technology Advisory Board within the open source group that actually is dedicated to building sustainability models for software development to helping our core developers and maintainers build out a stable, supportable, and innovative infrastructure for deploying new software within OHDSI. Now, I did give a talk on Sunday, and that talk was about how do we think about sustainability within a health system. So as a health system, you can be a data partner. You can convert your data to OMOP, and you can participate in network studies. But these things have a real cost to them, and so the challenge is how can you then? So those costs could be something as small as it's typically about $100,000 to convert your data to OMOP for the first time, but it can be you can spend more than that. There's some groups that could be spending more like $500,000 a year to really build an innovative engineering group that's really pushing the use of OHDSI and trying to get value of OHDSI in their health system. And I think that's really the key here, is trying to create value within your health system for your data set. So ways we do that is ways we find cost savings or value for OHDSIs. One is as a health system, we have to support a lot of clinical registries like NIH All of Us, N3C, CureID. There's actually over 30 clinical registries that already support the OMOP data model. And this, by supporting OMOP, this actually saves our productivity time of our analysts within our health system. So clinical registries is a great way to get started in OHDSI. It also is a way to have a clear data specification document. But that's not the only way to support your OHDSI efforts. Also, some clinical research efforts inside your health system certainly can be accelerated for building. If you have like a learning health initiative or have initiative to embrace genomics or medical imaging or waveform data, OHDSI can really be a great way of actually building out a framework for bringing that data together internally. We've also found models for helping drive education with OHDSI, as well as helping, and we're hoping to move forward with trying to use OHDSI for building out some operations reporting, as well as some quality metric analysis. So I know it's a longer topic, but sustainability is an important goal for building a team that can help you really build, not just make your data, turn it into OMOP, but be able to sustain it and be able to enrich it for having more phenotypes involved in it. I know it's a bigger question, but it's a great question to be talking about, and there's one that we're constantly having in the open source working group, as well as in the health systems interest groups as well.
Great, thank you, Paul. So I'm going to continue on the questions on the slides. I also saw that Hayden asked an important question there about certification, so we'll make sure we come to that as well. But the second question here was about how do we learn? How do I go about learning about open problems, especially around methods development? So I'll provide a short answer, but I'll also ask Mark maybe to comment on our methods work group. Short version is that I think all of our work groups are great places to identify where there are shared problems and opportunities to collaborate. Specifically, as it relates to methodologic research, we have both our work in population level effect estimation that Mark and Martijn lead, as well as our work in patient level prediction and open methodologic questions about machine learning that our colleagues Jenna Reps and Ross Williams lead. And so it kind of depends on what specific types of methods research you're doing. But I'll turn it over to Mark to highlight some of the work that's being done on the estimation front.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. And let me reiterate a point that Patrick made. There are at least two different work groups that are specifically focused on methods development. One around patient level prediction. That one meets monthly or every 2 weeks. I need to look at my calendar. I'm on the Pacific Coast, so it's at 6 a.m. on Wednesdays. So that's a great time for individuals on the North and South American East Coast and in Europe. It's a little early for those of us on the West Coast, but we make it anyway. And the methods work group, which is focused more on causal inference questions, which meets Pacific time Friday, 9 a.m. on the one of the Thursdays every month. Raising this question reminds me that there is a step that we as a community can take a bit further, and that is that in each of these work groups there is a never-ending list of open problems, and we in the work group should do a better job at making these lists publicly open so that individuals looking for important research questions that intersect with work that's going on right now can grab hold of those. In patient level prediction, there's a lot of active research both in expanding our suite of predictive modeling using advanced approaches in machine learning and artificial intelligence, particularly large language models. And for causal inference, we continue to think about how we can make causal estimates at scale, which is one of the biggest problems. There's a vast body of literature on appropriate ways of drawing causal inference, but many of those approaches don't scale well to the types of data sources that we share amongst the community, and with a particular focus on how to turn these approaches into methods that work well in our distributed or federated approach to information. As many in the community are aware, due to governance and protecting patients' rights, it is often impossible to share patient-level information outside of a federated data source. So we are very active in constructing methods that allow you to learn where only population-level information is shared. For people interested in a much longer list of open problems, I'd suggest that you attend one or both of those work groups that I talked about, and I will poke the leads of those work groups, which includes poking myself, to make our list of open problems definitely more open to our open science community. Thank you for the opportunity, Patrick.
Great. Thank you, Mark. The next question here, and I'll just direct those who are not looking at the chat. Andrew also mentioned that we, on dash.odyssey.org, we're trying to also highlight collaboration opportunities. Most of those are primarily funding opportunities for collaboration, which can provide a good portal to open questions, but also some of them are documents and directives of areas where there are some open questions if you're looking for inspiration. So definitely encourage you to take a look at that. The third question here was about a dictionary of Greek named tools and what are they used for, which I will take as a somewhat backhanded compliment question. What I just posted in the chat, however, are 3 specific links to where you can learn more about Odyssey tools and just provide you a quick orientation to them. So out on the Odyssey website at odyssey.org/software tools, you can see a super high-level summary of the tools. As Paul Nagy mentioned, there's a rich ecosystem of tools that are being developed. And what we're really trying to cultivate in the community is those who want to contribute to software development are welcome and encouraged at any stage of maturity. We use the Odyssey GitHub repository, which is github.com/Odyssey. And if you go there, you can see all the development that's going on in the community at all levels of maturity, from people who create open sandboxes and are just hacking code and doing whatever they want, to things that are trying to become more mature tools that we really recommend the use across the community. Specifically want to highlight the Hades packages, which are out at odyssey.github.io/Hades, which is where many of the Greek named tools actually are. But these are a suite of R packages to perform a range of different analytics for characterization, estimation, and prediction, but it includes both the kind of the front end interface that one may use for purposes of designing and executing studies, all the way through the back end supporting packages necessary for doing that. We do have a history in the community of trying to come up with cute Greek names for packages that we've created them, and so you will see various Greek named packages out there. But on the GitHub repository, you'll also see the description of what the packages are for. And certainly for the Hades packages, there's a proper documentation as kind of a requirement to be a mature Hades package that we encourage people to do, people to use. So I encourage you to take a look at those resources and take advantage of the open source tools that are being developed and grown. Fourth question here is about the role of the coordinating center and whether and how members are to engage with them. For example, writing grants for them. So, George, you want to take that one?
Sure thing. I mean, I alluded to it earlier. So there are some grants that the coordinating center writes, pulling in members of the community. The grant from the Food and Drug Administration is an example of that, where we were the center of that one. In other cases, OHDSI members write grants and include the coordinating center in it. I mean, we appreciate it when the grant includes not just the cost to do the new work, but the cost to pay for the infrastructure to do the work. In other words, for everything that you're doing, there's an infrastructure there and it has to be paid for somehow. And so we try to get that cost included in the grant as well as any new thing that needs to be added to OHDSI. And then people do write grants separately, and OHDSI and the coordinating center will write letters of support for them. Given that we want to expand the community and expand our infrastructure, though, we appreciate being included in some way to add to that infrastructure. So we would welcome helping write grants or having people join us when we write grants.
And I'll just add, as Andrew had mentioned earlier, one of the things that Marty is doing is providing a relatively up-to-date repository of grant opportunities. They're all posted at dash.ohdsi.org. And so if you're thinking, hey, I'm wondering whether there's any grant opportunities that could fit me, that's a great place to go look and search around for opportunities. And we're, as a steering committee, we're trying to make sure that people are at least aware of opportunities to collaborate with each other and raise your awareness of those. All right, fifth question we got was about how to troubleshoot and install and understand OHDSI tools. So for this, I'll just highlight that there are, baked in here, there's multiple different items. So I'm just gonna highlight a couple of different work groups that you all can encourage you to go pay attention to. So one is the HADES work group. So for those that are specifically thinking about OHDSI tools in terms of the R packages, the HADES work group is a place where the development, maintenance, and strategic decisions about how we make these tools easier to use takes place, and I'd encourage you to join the HADES work group. Martijn Schoene leads that. For those of you who are thinking about OHDSI tools in terms of web development tools, and specifically Atlas, there is an Atlas working group meeting that takes place that Anthony Senna and Alexi lead. And that is a great place for you to go if you're thinking about how to install web tools. There's also the open source community work group that Paul Nagy and Adam Black lead, and there are broad discussions about how to make tooling generically work. And I'll also provide a shout out there for our technical advisory board and the work that Lee Evans is driving, which is providing very specific solutions for considering how we try to make the broader OHDSI tool ecosystem work more effectively together, including things such as maintaining the OHDSI broad-C Docker container, which kind of provides a one-stop shop for configuring and installing all of the OHDSI tools within your environment. Since I mentioned multiple folks, let me just stop there. Paul or others, miss anything as it relates to installing and configuring OHDSI tools that you guys want to mention?
Yeah, I recommend, if you're starting out, is to definitely start with the broad-C. It's a simple Docker container that you can install on your laptop that gives you a nice overview of a lot of the tools within the OHDSI community. It's a great place to start.
And Mark provided a link there for those that really are looking to work in the R environment. We've tried to provide very detailed instructions how to install and configure your R environment, going from what base packages you need to install, how to get RStudio up and running, make sure you have the right version of R, and then be able to deploy all of our HADES packages.
Thank you for highlighting that, Patrick.
All right. Next question was, would be awesome if there was a roadmap or a guide for CDM implementation with tools associated with each step along the way. Claire, could I ask you to just provide, maybe Claire and Melanie, provide comments as it relates to, from the perspective of the CDM work group and our our health systems special interest group that does a lot of common practices of ETLs. If you could comment on this question from newcomers in the community.
Yeah, so in terms of CDM implementation, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, we updated the actual common data model itself. And actually Frank is working on getting it in CRAN. So now it'll be super official. But we have this nice package that you can actually run, and it will, automatically set up like the tables for you in your environment. So we tried to make it as simple as possible there, so you don't have to go and hunt and peck for the SQL. You can just run the R package, though the SQL is out there for you if you like. And then, really when you start with your CDM and you start with your ETL, the other tools that we find really helpful are those to help you with your data quality assessment. So that would be the data quality dashboard. We've actually heard a lot of good feedback from the community, really just in the ways that the data quality dashboard, or DQD, just helps identify maybe different rules and specifications that you weren't aware of, and it kind of helps guide you in the right direction as to how to set up your data and get it in a position where you could actually run some of our study packages. The other package that's really great is the Achilles package, because it'll do high-level characterization of your data for you and give you a very nice overview of all your conditions, drugs, procedures, like pretty much everything that you could ever want to know about your data is included in Achilles. And then I want to give a quick plug to Aries as well, because I think Aries has been great to visualize the Achilles data that are coming out of that package. And then we also have some open ETL documentation as well, and I'll put it in the chat. It's hard to create a one size fits all for how to actually map your data to the CDM, but we have some examples I can share with you for US claims, US EHR, UK GP data, Japanese claims. So I have a lot of that I can share to give you an idea of how you might approach converting your own data.
Great, thanks, Claire. Melody, you have something to add?
Yeah, so I was just going to say that I agree with Claire that it is definitely not a one size fits all, but there are some generalizations going along. So coming from the healthcare systems interest group perspective, which is mostly EHR data, registry, stuff like that, there's a few different tools out there. There's Rabbit in a Hat and White Rabbit that you can use along with Perseus, and that's for actually more of the data mapping. When you have some source codes or source values that aren't coded, and you need to map those, you would use Usagi is one of the main tools. And then also just to take a look and find your resources out there. So if you're mapping Epic, you can go to the Epic user web to get a good starting point and guideline on some ETL conversions there. Same with the Cerner folks, have some ETL documentation out there. So just to add those in, I'll add some links into the chat too for people. So, and if you have any more questions, come to the Healthcare Systems Interest Group. We meet every other Monday, with our next meeting this upcoming Monday.
Thank you, Melanie. And I also just posted in the chat, one other resource that's available to everybody is the Eden Academy. These are free educational courses that have been made available, and in the Eden project, there was a specific, and actually this is going to go connect to Hayden's question earlier. Within the IMI Eden project, which is based in Europe, we created a certification program whereby small to medium-sized enterprises went through a process of learning how to deploy the OMOP Common Data Model and Odyssey Toolkit within environments, and they went through a certification program that involved taking a series of courses on the Eden Academy platform that has now been made publicly available for everybody to take advantage of, as well as to go through a certification program that involved them being tested on their competency. We do not have and so now there are, I forget the exact number, 57 SMEs that have been certified by Eden throughout the European region that are organizations that can do ETL and related Odyssey services, and that extends, that's kind of above and beyond the wide collection of organizations throughout the Odyssey ecosystem that provide professional services for ETLs and technical infrastructure. Odyssey, as a broader community, we don't currently have a certification program. It's something that we've discussed on our steering committee calls, but have not yet implemented. But it's certainly an area to consider moving forward. All right. Next question here was about collaboration and collaboration with the military. And I know that I guess I'll frame this as we definitely have multiple colleagues within the Odyssey community that are part of the military, and many people on this phone are collaborating with them. With the coordinating center, we are very thankful to have a collaborative agreement with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and so we're quite keen and encouraged to have that collaboration that's going on. And we also have individuals who are supporting work at the VA and the Department of Defense. I know that but I guess because Odyssey is a peer-to-peer network, I'll just open it up for those who are collaborating with the military if they just want to comment about what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Yeah, so one thing I can mention, so certainly I'm glad that they mentioned on the call that we have a long history with the VA, with Scott Duvall's work in Utah. The DHA is based off of Cerner, and they are converting their data to OMOP. Dr. Jesus Caban was at the Odyssey conference, and he's leading those efforts for DHA. And I'd be happy to connect folks if they wanted to see. We're hoping to see them. They have an interest and plan to be part of our network studies in the 2024.
All right. Christoph, yeah, go ahead, Christoph.
So there already is a national, like this migration to Cerner is a new thing. So there's 20 plus years of VA data that is in the OMOP common data model. And generally, getting that type of access involves a collaboration with a full-time VHA employee who can sponsor, do the IRB for that. And there's also the active duty period of time for veterans. There's a second database called Da Vinci that's also in the OMOP common data model. So you can kind of look at both time periods, sort of during active duty and after. So it's a great resource. I'm kind of concerned of how a shift to whole new EHR will create a break and in the way that data are collected. But it's a wonderful resource if you have the opportunity to work in it.
Great, thank you, Christoph. Hayden, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, that's how I got involved with Odyssey initially, and Christopher, we can definitely talk about Cerner sometime because it is it will be interesting, but I think it's on a good pace. I work for a consulting firm that ORD, the Office of Research at the VA, is our primary client. So I work with a lot of VA investigators for a short period of time, and OMOP is definitely the first thing that I kind of bring up as an option for some of their healthcare services research. It's a great collaboration. It's very mature in the VA space and in the DHA space as well. So there's definitely a lot of stuff there, and feel free to reach out if you are having any questions about what that might look like, because anybody that's interested in research and has a university home can also have ways to get involved with that. They can become a VA investigator. Mark is nodding his head. Mark has some experience there as well. So there's a lot of roads in. So thank you.
Okay. And I'll just highlight that this question came in, and I think it's largely U.S. centric. So we're talking about the U.S. military in this context. Just to remind everybody, we are an international community. We also are welcome and have collaborations in various other countries as relevant and appropriate.
Yeah. EMA in Europe, Korean in the government. So
very good. So the next question is a fun one. Does Odyssey have a work group need level? Like one work group may have tons of contribution and others not so much, where one can help most. So we've got lots of work group leads that are on the call. I've never heard any of them come to me complaining, geez, Patrick, I've got too much contribution and I don't know what to do with all this contribution. I've never heard that come up. So I think that the need level is largely driven by, my more serious answer here is that we try to make sure that our work group leads have the opportunity to communicate what they're doing and how they're doing it periodically throughout these community calls, as well as, of course, everybody's welcome and encouraged to go join the work groups to hear more about what they're doing. But as you heard from Craig earlier today, whatever the work group leads are having their meetings, we encourage them to say, like, what are you doing and what are you looking for, as an opportunity to get that catch in. I would suspect that most work groups work group leads would say they all have a need, because there's always more work to be done. And so I don't think I can provide favored preference towards one or another. But what I would say is that there's a place for everybody, all the newcomers. Like, there's a lot of work, and we hear over and over again, it can feel overwhelming because there's so many different work groups and so many different things to do. And so I just encourage you to kind of feel your way around and identify the places where feel like the right home for you. But you will find that all the work groups are welcome and inclusive, and would be excited to have additional contributions to bring to the fore. I don't know if any of the work group leads want to make an impassioned plea for that you need them more than others.
I can chime in. From a health equity perspective, I completely agree with Patrick. I think there's always a need for different people and different expertise at all levels. I do think that some work groups have a bit more structure, so there's more, I guess, directed work moving forward. But I also feel that no effort and no work is ignored. So I would just ask everyone to participate, chime in, and contribute, no matter how many hours or how many days you have, especially in work groups, especially like health equity, where there isn't a detailed structure as we go forward. If you feel like you can build structure or contribute, I'm always looking for folks to help out.
Thanks, Adib. Melanie?
Hi, yes. So the Themis working group is, we are going to create a repository for all the conventions on how to OMOP your data. And so it'd be great if we had somebody that maybe had some experience in building a repository. We have a lot of people in the Themis working group that we know what attributes we want and how to store them, but how to store them and then how to retrieve them is something that we need a little bit of help with in Themis. So that'd be great if somebody wanted to help out with that.
Good. Thank you, Melanie. All right. We keep going through here. So somebody asked a question about logistics and using Microsoft accounts. So I'll just broadly say there's multiple places where communications take place in the OHDSI community. We do use Microsoft Teams. We have a free collaborative environment where anybody can apply. You just fill out the form on the OHDSI website at OHDSI.org. You apply with whatever email you have, and then you can log into Microsoft Teams. You can do that either by using the standalone application that Teams has that you can install, or if you, for whatever reason, have an environmental issue limitation of that, you can also log into Teams via any internet browser, and you can use your own personal email for that. Additionally, workgroup leads that want them, we grant them OHDSI email accounts within our Teams environment so they can manage their OHDSI related activities. Beyond the Microsoft Teams environment, we also use our forums, which is at forums.ohdsi.org, where you can register for an account yourself using whatever email, and there's lots of public conversations that take place there as well. Our work group meetings and document sharing and all of that kind of stuff, that all happens within the Teams environment. So certainly encourage you to be able to get access to that, but you don't need to install software you can do everything browser-based. And even for those that are joining this meeting, for example, you can just get a calendar invite with a link to the meeting and be able to join without actually having anything installed. All right, next question is about a list of members of the OHDSI network. So there's not an easy answer to this. One thing that I'll highlight that Paul Nagy has on our community dashboard is the ability for us to identify members who have at least published papers. And if you look at our Journey book that Craig created and we released at the symposium last year, you can actually see a very nice graph diagram of all the individuals who published 2 or more papers in the community and how they're related to each other. We encourage newcomers to join the OHDSI forums and just say hello and introduce yourself. And there's a really terrific thread on the OHDSI forums for newcomers where everybody's kind of introduced themselves, who they are, what they do. We also just have a recommended practice for all of our OHDSI work group meetings that we try to make sure that if there's any newcomers who join a meeting that they take the opportunity to introduce themselves at those meetings. And the reason for last week's meeting and this meeting is an opportunity for newcomers to be able to introduce themselves as well. When George reports out our total number of collaborators in the community, that number that he's reciting is specifically the number of people who have created accounts in the Microsoft Teams environment. So when we talk about 3,700, whatever it is, 3,783 people, that's specifically 3,783 distinct people who have an OHDSI Microsoft Teams account, who basically are receiving the calendar invites for this meeting every weekend, are eligible to join any of our work group meetings. Craig, anything I missed on that point that you want to highlight?
No, I think that's good. I mean, we have a list of collaborators on the front page, but it's pretty outdated and something that I'd like to try to get updated. And at some point next year, hopefully I'll have a little bit of a plan for that. But that is one extra place you can look. Claire has her hand up.
Yeah, so I would just wanted to when I hear the word OHDSI network, I maybe think of it not so much of the individuals, but I think of it as members who have data who are willing to participate, or members who may not have data but who want to participate in studies and have not yet published a paper. And I posted a link to the Our Journey book Patrick was talking about, because there's a really nice list of all of our current, organizations or centers who have mapped their data to the OMOP CDM. And then there's also the list of members who are our 36 inaugural evidence network members who are committed to using their data to support network research. So just another kind of bent on the phrase OHDSI network.
Thank you, Claire. And certainly we encourage all of you who are new to the community and have data and want to be part of the OHDSI evidence network to take a look at that and submit and join. We'd love to have that list of partners continue to expand. All right, and then the last question that came in on the forums was, how could someone have a presentation for more than 8 minutes at the OHDSI meeting like Bartine and Patrick have every year? This is I will share that the way that the OHDSI Global Symposium is organized is we have 2 primary sub-teams that focus on this. There's the OHDSI Steering Work Group, where decisions about logistics and organizational for the overall meeting take place, and encourage you all to join our steering work group, which takes place on Fridays, that George and I co-chair. And then we also have our scientific review committee, who reviews all of the submissions that come into the symposium. So for those of you who liked the symposium this year and would like to contribute to its sustained success, we encourage you to join the scientific review committee and be part of that process. And for those of you who disliked it, we encourage you to also join that process, and you'll be able to shape subsequent years' agendas. All right, Craig, I was not following all of the questions in the chat, so can you keep me honest about which ones we missed?
So you had mentioned the one from Hayden at the beginning, so I'm just gonna, Hayden, do you want to jump on, or I can read it?
Oh, I think we covered it with the certifications.
Certifications, okay.
Yeah. we don't currently have one, I think was for the US at least, but there's been
Right.
some work in the past.
Yep.
Good enough.
It looks like most of them were covered or answered in the chat. Let's just do this. Are there anybody have questions that weren't covered that wants to raise their hand real quick?
I see there was one question in the chat that we didn't answer that was associated with, has anybody in Odyssey done something with disaster recovery?
Oh, yep.
I'm not aware of any work that's been done in this space, but I'll open it up to the broader community in case folks have delivered some evidence in that space.
I just noted, this is Andrew, that the GIS work group is developed infrastructure to support things like the Social Vulnerability Index, which was a measure of community vulnerability to disaster, and so there's infrastructure to support that. I think we're working on use cases that use the SVI. Others have done so as well. So that's as close, I think, as we've currently come. But that's a particular indicator of community preparedness or vulnerability to disaster that's supported.
Thank you, Andrew. And I see the question here about the organizations in Odyssey. It's printed very small in the book. Yeah, my recommendation for you is open up the PDF and zoom in. And that's only somewhat tongue-in-cheek there. We don't have there is no formal membership. There is no requirements for an organization to be part of that. So quite literally, that list of organizations is all the organizations from all the people who filled out the Microsoft Teams form and joined the community. And we just wanted to be able to represent that in a nice list. But given that this is completely an open community of individuals, we don't have a formal membership or a formal roster, but we try to give a good understanding of who are the types of people and types of organizations that are joining and participating. How can clinicians become involved in clinical research with Odyssey or specific work groups? So we're taking a great step by coming here to this community call. We always are encouraging clinicians to come with their clinical questions. We do have some clinical subspecialty work groups. So if you're specifically interested in eye care and vision or dentistry or oncology, then there are work groups specifically set up in those areas. But more generally, we welcome people to come with their questions, clinical questions, and welcome people to start initiating network studies across our study areas. And if you have a specific clinical subspecialty that you'd really like to see dedicated focus, and you don't see a work group that's already listed, encourage you to think about just creating a work group. It doesn't take, seems like we've got or we do have quite a lot of work groups, but it's not because we've created some sort of extremely rigid organizational structure or hierarchy. Quite the contrary. A work group is simply somebody who expressed an interest in wanting to work on a shared problem with others and being willing to volunteer to be a leader. And we encourage all of you to consider being leaders. As you heard earlier from Craig with the spotlight with the teeth, you don't need to be a long time veteran in the community to be a leader. A leader is just somebody who's willing to volunteer to share their time and share their expertise and to get others to join the journey and contributing to that space. So encourage all of you to take on that opportunity in whatever respective area that you want to contribute.
Yeah, Patrick, let me just jump in on that because, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, maybe even, we did not have an eye care and vision research work group. We did not have surgery, or the surgery and perioperative medicine work group has just begun. The dentistry work group is new and moving forward. So these clinically focused work groups are really building up right now. And like you said, we are at the steering group is supportive of these missions of starting new work groups to tackle different clinical issues. So if you don't see the work group you want to be part of, you can start it. You can work with people to get it going, and just please reach out to the steering group to see how we can help.
All right.
I don't see
at the end of the hour. wish everybody a happy Halloween. You all missed out on the Halloween Odyssey quiz that I had prepared for you all, so we'll save that for 2024, I guess. But thank you all for the rich questions, and thank you all for those who participated in the conversation. Wish you all well finding as many Reese's Cups as you can tonight.
Thanks everyone for joining. Look out for the newsletter tomorrow. If you're not getting the newsletter, some people it's going to their spam folders. Check out, if you're not seeing it and you've signed up, look there. Otherwise, it'll be on the website tomorrow. Symposium webpage. Videos are coming soon, so check it out. Otherwise, have a great day. Have a great week. Try not to get a stomach ache tonight. Talk to you next week. Bye.